What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego shortly after the Vikings' 24-17 season opening loss to the San Diego Chargers. If you had told the Vikings coming into this game Percy Harvin would take back the opening kickoff 103 yards for a touchdown, the defense would make a couple of big-time plays, including Jared Allen's interception in the red zone, that the Vikings would go into the locker room at halftime with a 17-7 lead, they absolutely would have taken it. This is a very good Chargers team that people around the league were raving about coming in. Yet what we saw in the second half raised real questions in a number of aspects, but particularly about Bill Musgrave's offense and where they go from here. Donovan McNabb in the second half completed 1 of 6 passes for 2 yards. He was under a lot of pressure. The deep ball where Bernard Berrien has a step on the cornerback. Phil Lodeholt gets beat on that play. McNabb gets hit. It alters the pass. Final offensive snap for the Vikings. Charlie Johnson gets beat, as he was repeatedly. I can think of 4 or 5 times where he gave up either pressure or hits on McNabb. He gives up a sack that ends their kind of last gasp effort. You can look at a lot of things that happen on defense, the missed tackles, the way they didn't cover the flats. There are definitely things to improve there. But what is going to happen with an offense that was simply stagnant, and that at least a couple of players in the locker room after the game were wondering aloud about whether it was creative enough or whether the defense kind of had figured out what the Vikings were going to do and made it too easy to stop them. Percy Harvin, in particular, said that he thought that perhaps they could have thrown the ball more on first and second down to keep them out of a bunch of those third and long situations. The Vikings, if you look at the overall numbers in terms of rushing, 26 carries, 159 yards, it's a 6.1 average. That's pretty good. But now take Adrian Peterson's 46-yard run out of that. How much damage did they really do on a play-to-play basis throughout the course of the game? They ran the ball fairly efficiently, but was it enough? And did the Vikings try to come with passing plays in enough situations that perhaps the Chargers weren't geared to stop? The Chargers really sat back and played a lot of two-deep zones. They did bring down Bob Sanders in the box some to stop Adrian Peterson, but it wasn't as though it was a perpetual thing. What they were going to make the Vikings do was try to stretch the field vertically on the perimeter. They had their safeties down to try to take away the seams, played linebackers underneath the tight ends. No catches for any tight ends. For as much as the Vikings played 2 and 3 tight end sets tonight, not a single catch, only 1 ball thrown in Shanko's direction, 1 ball thrown in Rudolph's direction, and the latter was actually just a throwaway. McNabb's numbers, 7 of 15 for 39 yards, touchdown, and an interception. The interception was actually on a run play. He tries to throw a one-step option route. Anytime you see a line like that, not to mention the 1 of 6 in the second half for 2 yards, there is cause for concern. And it's on so many different levels. It's the protection breaking down, forcing them to keep Jim Kleinsasser in just to help out the tackles with what the Chargers were doing on the perimeter. It's the receivers that, outside of Michael Jenkins coming free a few times in the first half, and really a couple of those were the Chargers blowing coverage. Takeo Spikes on the touchdown just kind of lost sight of Jenkins. He floats over, ends up wide open. The receivers didn't do a whole lot of damage. They tried to manufacture a lot of plays with Percy Harvin. A lot of them went nowhere. They put Joe Webb in a wildcat situation on third down. That didn't do any good. The one thing that they could do at times in this game was run the ball with Adrian Peterson. But the biggest fear, or the biggest criticism that people around the league had about the Vikings was coming in was, can McNabb make enough plays? Because he's not the most accurate pocket passer. You've got to get him out on the run. But also, does he have the explosive elements on the perimeter to balance the perimeter opposite Percy Harvin and to take some of the heat off and to make teams respect the ball over the top? They really only tried to blow the top off the defense one time in this game. McNabb gets hit. Ball comes up short to Berrien. He can't haul it in. The Chargers cornerback, Kason, makes a decent play to get a hand in. But it's a play that, if it's executed properly from a protection standpoint, they probably make the play down the field. All these moving parts working together is necessary for an offense to go. In this game, there were a ton of different issues. You can't pin it all on McNabb. You can't pin it all on Bill Musgrave. But all I know is when they go back to Winter Park tomorrow, Bill Musgrave has to go back to the drawing board to an extent and figure out how to prevent what we saw out here, particularly in the last 30 minutes, from ever happening again. Full coverage of the Vikings at 1500ESPN.com. I got a flight back in the morning, and we, of course, will have coverage all week out at Winter Park. See ya.